Hey there! I have a special treat for you today. Featherly Light sponge cake sandwiched with whipped cream and apricot jam. This is my third recipe I've made from my personal cookbook challenge using the cookbook Cooking School by Delish. This is the last recipe I'm making from the first chapter entitled Recipes You Should Know by Heart. Stay hungry, friends. This one is worth the wait. Let's head to the kitchen. Welcome to my recipe journal. My name is Jackie. I'm on a journey for culinary change. I'm eager to spice things up a little by educating myself with new techniques, trying new recipes, herbs, and spices, changing up dinner ideas here at home. I've decided to journal my experience. I'm honored you're here. Let's get cooking. Hi, friends. The first thing I want to talk about is the ingredients with this particular recipe. We've got 4 eggs, 3/4 cups of superfine sugar, 2/3 cups of cake flour, 1/4 cup of instant vanilla pudding mix, 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar, half a teaspoon of baking soda, a third cup of apricot jam, and 1 1/4 cups of heavy whipped cream. One thing I'd like to point out really quickly before we move on is there was 2 ingredients in the recipe here that I don't normally have at my house on hand. One of them is superfine sugar, and I really didn't even know superfine sugar was a thing. But turns out that you can take regular granulated sugar and turn that into superfine sugar with a food processor or a blender or something like that. You just have to remember to put more than what the recipe calls for because when you bring it to the superfine consistency, it ends up reducing the amount that the recipe actually calls for. So you have to make a little bit more of it. And if there is more than the 2/3 or 3/4 or whatever that you need, well, you can just take that superfine sugar and put it back into your sugar container because it's still just sugar. Um, Also, I don't normally have cake flour on hand. I have all purpose and self rising, but I don't usually have cake flour. And cake flour is something that you can find or I can find in the grocery store anytime I want to. But I didn't want to go and purchase a bag of cake flour or a box of cake flour when all I needed was 2/3 cup of cake flour. Um, so one thing you can do is take a cup of flour and remove 2 tablespoons from the cup and then put 2 tablespoons of cornstarch back in its place. Mix it up really good. Voila, you have cake flour. One of the tips I would like to point out is that it states that it's better to grease your pans with melted butter. And I never really thought about that before because I always greased my cake pans with like solid butter and then floured it. But it makes sense. So your next step is to preheat your oven to 350 degrees, grease and flour 2 deep 8-inch round cake pans. You may notice I'm not using 2 8-inch round cake pans as instructed by the recipe. I didn't have deep 8-inch cake pans, so I improvised and used a spring thumb pan. Not sure of the measurement of the pan, but I could tell it would probably work out okay, so I have 1 pan instead of 2. Next, you're going to take all of your dry ingredients, everything except for sugar, the cake flour, the instant vanilla, the cream of tartar, and baking soda. You're going to take those dry ingredients and sift them 3 times. You're going to set that aside, and that is noted as the triple sifted dry ingredients. Okay, so your next set of instructions is to beat eggs and sugar in small bowl with electric mixer until thick, creamy, and sugar is dissolved. So the tips area in the cookbook says that you really need to make sure that when you're mixing your sugar and your eggs that you basically let it go for about 10 minutes because it really needs to have a lot of volume to it for the recipe to turn out correctly. And so that was one tip that I'm really glad that I read and followed. So I just thought I would show you the difference and what you'll know um, that your egg mixture, sugar mixture is right just by the color and thickness of it. Like it turns to a really pale yellow, and it's just the consistency is different. And I showed pictures in the video, and you can see the difference in what just a few minutes versus 10 minutes does. So the next thing you're going to want to do is if you are mixing your egg mixture, egg and sugar mixture in a small bowl, you're going to want to transfer that to a larger bowl. If you have a large bowl stand mixer like I do, you're going to now take your triple sifted ingredients, the dry ingredients that you set aside, everything but the sugar, and to gently fold that into your egg mixture. Next, you're going to take your batter and pour it into a greased and floured cake pan or cake pans. Place pan or pans into a preheated 350-degree oven for around 20 minutes. When your cake is finished baking, turn top side up onto parchment-covered wire rack to cool. Because I put all my batter into one pan instead of two, I decided to go ahead and cut my one layered sponge cake in half so that I can sandwich it with the whipped cream and the apricot or apricot jam like is shown in the picture in the cookbook. So I went ahead and cut the cake in half, and then I cut a piece out like you would cut a piece of pie. And so now I've got the two pieces there. I'm putting the whipped cream and the apricot jam so I can sandwich it together and get it just as close to the picture as I can that's in the cook. Okay, here's the picture in the cookbook, what it's supposed to look like. And then here is my piece that I just cut out. And now I'm going to sample it and see what it tastes like. Okay, moment of truth and pause right there. I on purpose tried my best not to give an over dramatic facial expression when I tasted this cake because I wanted to be as real and authentic as possible. And let me tell you, when I tried it, it was really good, really moist, and it had a sweet and tart taste at the same time with the apricot jam. It was really good. Hi, friends. I just want to say really quickly that at the end of my recipes on my cookbook challenge, I usually give it a score, and it's usually based on how tasty is the dish, how easy is it to make, how practical is it, and how often would we like to have this dish again. Because the whole goal was to find new dishes to add into our weekly routine dinners. But I'm finding that with this cookbook, that it's just not a fair way to judge it because it's called cooking school. It's fundamental cooking techniques, and it's just not fair to judge it on that criteria that I was looking for. But I still want to continue um, with the cookbook challenge. I started off with it, and I'm enjoying learning. Um, so for that reason, I want to continue. So I'm going to change up my judging criteria for this cookbook. Um, I'm just going to judge it on how tasty is it and how would I like to do it again. Is it a do-over recipe? And also maybe some things that I picked up and learned from it, the takeaways from it. And so for the recipe that I just finished, the sponge cake, I would give it a rating from 1 to 5, 5 being the top. I would give it a rating of 4. Um, as far as the taste. And then, is it a do-over? Definitely, it's a do-over. And the takeaways that I learned when I make sponge cake again, I will know that I'll need at least 10 minutes to get the volume with the egg and sugar mixture so that my recipe will turn out correctly. Well, that wraps up this recipe. I'm honored you spent time with me. If you found any value or enjoyed this video at all, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Until next recipe, take care. Blessings to you and your family. Bye now.